Hey everyone. So in this video what we're going to talk about is integrating our Wwise project into a Unity project. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and open up Unity. We're going to create a brand new project and I'm going to call it Wwise Unity Integration. I'm going to put it on my desktop, so make sure to select your desktop. I'm going to make a 3D package. I'm going to go ahead and create my project. You can see that created a new folder on my desktop and it created a generic scene. We're going to insert a few things into our scene. I have my project folder here, and the first thing I want to do is insert some assets. I'm going to go ahead and insert the characters package into Unity. What that will allow me to do is basically use the prefabricated objects that Unity has already created for me, so that I don't have to create a third-person controller or a first-person controller from scratch. It's already built for me. Okay, we're waiting for this stuff to import. Okay, now I want to go ahead and create a plane for us to walk around on. So I'll go up to Create Object, 3D Object, Plane, and it's going to put the plane in the scene. I'm going to change the scale so that my X is equal to 5 and my Z is equal to 5. So I have a nice big large area to walk on. Alright, then let's go into our standard assets folder. These are the assets that we just imported. Go to Characters, First Person Character, Prefabs, and then drag the first person controller out onto the scene. You can see by this little camera icon here that it's got a camera on it. So what I'm going to do is take the original main camera that we had in the scene. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm going to save my scene and just call it level 1. Put it in my assets folder. Now when I press play, I should be able to walk around on that. In fact, I'm hearing footsteps. Now the first person controller himself has some scripts on him that allow us to hear basically some landing, running, jumping footstep sounds, so we can look at those. Now when we import the Wwise stuff, we're actually going to break this a little bit because we're going to completely replace the audio engine with the Wwise materials. So let's go ahead and start that process. So in order to import a Wwise project, we're going to have to download a special plugin from the Audio Kinetic site. So I'll go to the Audio Kinetic site, and what I want to do is I want to get the Unity integration plugin. I have to select the version of Wwise that I'm using. I'm using 2015.1.7. I'm going to select that, make sure that Mac is checked down here because that's what I'm working on. I'll hit go. That brings me down here. Then I can download the Mac OS X Wwise Unity integration package, and that will download. It's fairly small. Okay, and I'm going to go to my Finder and go into downloads, and I can see that I have my Unity package all set and ready to go. Go back over to Unity and import that package, but not quite yet. There's one step that I have to do before I do that, which is to take my Wwise project and put it into my Wwise folder. My Unity folder. Take your Wwise project, drag it into your Unity folder. Do not put it in assets because that will actually conflict a little bit with the way Unity deals with assets. And assets are for your art assets and your music and sound and things like that. But it wants to analyze everything in it. So if you put your Wwise project folders inside the assets folder, it's going to try and read those and then say, hey, I can't understand this file format and things like that. So just drag your Wwise project folder into the main Unity folder itself. All right, step 2, import that package. So go up here, Assets, Import Custom Package. Go to my desktop, I see the Unity package here. I import that. I'm going to hit basically at the bottom here you can see all the new things that's adding to our project, And everything that we're importing is prefixed with AK. That means audio kinetic. These are audio kinetic files. They are the manufacturers of Wwise. I'll go ahead and hit the import key. And it's going to import all that material. It's also going to do a few other things for us. If you pay attention to the hierarchy, it's going to add in like a Wwise Global object there. In addition, you'll see in just a second, it's going to start looking around for our Wwise project. Since we've already dragged it into our main Unity folder, it found it automatically for us, which is really awesome. Then down here, you'll see it's asking you where the sound bank folder is, and it's in audio generate sound bank. So all that's fine. We don't have to change anything. Then it's going to do two things. It's going to create a Wwise Global game object. Then it's going to add an AK audio listener to the main camera. This is replacing the Unity audio listener that we have. And so when we hit start installation, you'll see over here, oops, it takes us to the manual or the reference library for how to do this on Wwise's site, which is cool, but we don't need to do that right now. I'm going to go back to Unity. It's going to finish compiling all those scripts together, and you can see it did a couple things. Wwise Global, it added a Wwise Global to our project, which basically has some initializers to get Wwise up and running. It also gave us a third tab down here, Wwise Picker, which contains our entire project. So we can go in here and see the events that we've created. We'll also show the sound banks that we've created, so you can see our level 1 sound bank right there. All right, so what else did it do? It went to the first person character and replaced the Unity audio listener with the AK audio listener, and that's so that we're reverting over to the Wwise audio engine instead of using the Unity audio engine, and all that's fine. All right, so let's do a couple things. Let's start actually hearing our music within the game. So what I'm going to do is create a new game object. I'm going to create a cube right here and put it in front of me, so I have to kind of walk towards it. One other thing I wanted to show you is that when you press play, you can't hear any of the footsteps anymore. That's because we've replaced the audio engine, and the audio engine before we were using the Unity audio engine, and that's where the footsteps are trying to play. Because there's no listener anymore for Unity, it's basically disregarding that information, which is fine for right now. All right, next thing that we have to do, we have this cube here. We're going to go ahead and drag an event onto that cube, which is to start our game. Remember that this is to start our music switch. We are setting the state to none and starting our music switch. In order for this to work, we have to add a rigid body, so just go ahead and add rigid body to it. And then when we trigger on start, basically, we're not going to do it on start. We're going to do it on trigger enter, so we do this one at a time. So AK trigger enter, so I went to nothing, then AK trigger enter. We are going to change this to is trigger, and then it loads the start game event and basically plays it. So if I go ahead and do this now, it will start it, and you can see down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see sound engine initialize. That's good. Then when I go through my object here, it starts the switch, but it's set to none, so we don't hear anything yet. So I have to set up one more object to switch the state from none to, say, explore. So I'll go ahead and do that. Same thing, 3D object. Let's create a sphere this time. Here's my sphere in the world. And I'll put it over here next to the cube that I've made. And I want to go into Explore, so I'll drag Explore to my cube. Sorry, my sphere. Add a rigid body. Make sure it's a trigger. And then lastly, when does it happen? Not at the start. We want it to happen specifically when we on trigger enter. All right, we're getting close. So when you hit play, the cube is to load up the switch and play it none, and then when we go through the sphere, we start playing explore. And what have I done wrong? So I have my sphere set up to trigger enter, and we set the state to explore. This one is set, oh, you know what I've totally forgot to do? We forgot to load the sound bank. All right, so let's load the sound bank. You could have done this before, I sort of messed that up. On the Wwise Global, let's go ahead and put it there. So I'll load up my sound bank like so. So right when the game starts, I'm going to load that level 1 sound bank. Okay, now save and hit play. Now I'm playing my switch on none, and then I switch my state to explore. And then finally it plays. Alright, so we're getting closer. Next, what do we want to do? We want to switch, we can switch to another state if we want to, or we could play a stinger. Basically, all this is kind of the same. We just set up a new object, a 3D object. Let's make a capsule this time. Here's my capsule. And I'm going to have the capsule play, oops, here's my capsule. I'm going to have my capsule play one of my triggers. So I can go over here and say, all right, trigger event 1, drag that right over here, add my rigid body. Make sure that I don't play it at the start. We want it to only play when we enter it. So AK trigger enter, change it to is trigger, and hit play. Then, cross our fingers, start the switch, change the switch, change the state from none to explore, and then we hear the little transition to get us into first state. So this is explore coming up here, and explore has 4 different phrases in it. This is the first one, and if I've done everything correctly, when I go through the capsule here, it should play the stinger that I have set up. Okay, let's do one more. I'm going to go in here and create one more game object. So let's create a cylinder, which looks a little bit like the capsule. Put it over here. Zoom back a little bit. There it is there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my state to chase. So go ahead. By the way, sometimes these dragging objects is a real pain. It's not really, it's not the best user interface. Sometimes you have to click drag and then move it. Sometimes you have to click off of it and then click back on. It just takes a little bit of practice. Add your rigid body. I'm going to go ahead and set it to on trigger enter again. So on trigger enter, set it to trigger. Now when I start the game itself, I'm going to basically hear the that turns on my switch. This turns on explore. This plays my stinger. And then lastly, once I'm in the piece itself, we get to phrase 1. This is phrase 1 of explore. And then if I go through this, what it'll do is it'll wait for the end of this before playing the chase. Play the chase. And then for the rest of this, what you want to do, you want to go ahead and set up all your events within the level itself so that you hear all the different things that you put together. That's it. That's all there is to it. Good luck. Let me know if you have questions.